Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
And welcome in Purple Access as we get set for the NFL Scouting Combine. As always, it's Judd. Well, actually, Declan out, so it's AJ in for Declan. And my good friend Chip Scoggins, Star Tribune sports columnist. And Chip, as the Combine gets set to kick off, an event that I think really marks the start of the off-season in earnest. Let's start here. What are you most curious about storyline-wise? Because the Combine is a potpourri of draft prospects, obviously, workouts, who doesn't throw, but also, you know, you start to have meetings between teams and agents for free agents. And then more importantly, the illegal tampering period begins as well. So where would you like to start as far as points of interest to you?
For me, it's more of the Vikings business unrelated to the draft. I mean, the Combine used to be all about the draft. Now it's more about where league business really picks up steam. So to me, the two headliners are Cousins and Jefferson. I think this will probably be the first, not the first conversation, obviously, between Jefferson and the Vikings, but I bet it heats up. I bet we'll have some news floated out of the Indianapolis. It's still in Indy, right? They're not moving
still
it
in
around
Indy.
to other place.
It's
Didn't
been bidded out.
Moving it around.
They bid it out, and Indy got it back for like 2 years or something like that. So.
Yeah. Keep it in Indy. It's a great place for it. It's central located. It's great. Yeah. But anyway, I would guess that we'll probably hear some reports float out of Indy about Jefferson and kind of what they're looking for, his side. I would think probably we're going to have to get some clarity on Cousins here fairly shortly, right? In terms of, are you going to extend him or let him? Judd, I don't think they're going to let him play out a lame duck year.
I agree.
This year. I think it's going to be a short extension and for 2 years. So I think those are the two most pressing issues. But, you know, we may hear from the Viking side on a little more clarity on what they're going to do with Thielen, what they're going to do with some of these big ticket, you know, is Zadarius, Harrison Smith. You know, I don't know if we'll get definitive answers on guys that get restructured, but I think there might be a little bit of chatter about that.
So let's go back to the two primary guys that you brought up there. First of all, with Jefferson, I think it's going to be a little bit contentious, just a little bit, because it's going to be such a huge contract ask. And again, I'll say for the 1,000th time, he deserves it. Ultimately, I think it gets done. But I mean, Chip, we've covered enough of these things. It's rarely just smooth sailing. Like ordinarily there's bumps, especially because we sort of get play by play because, you know, leaks come from teams and probably more importantly, agents. Do you expect that? Because I just don't, I struggle to think it's just going to be, well, he asked for the moon and the sun and we gave it to him.
Yeah, this is not some mid-round pick where you're going to be slotted in and I don't think it's going to be smooth sailing because there is pressure on a player side from the PA to set the market, right? I mean, you always want to keep elevating those salaries for the next guy. And we're talking about a wide receiver who's going to get paid like a quarterback.
Yes.
So that in itself, how it's structured, you know, the average salary per year, all that is going to be difficult because I have to imagine when this is done, Jefferson is going to be the highest paid receiver, right, in the NFL.
If he's not here. Absolutely right.
Yeah. I mean, so anytime you're setting the bar, I don't think that's going to be a smooth process. So, I mean, what is it? Hill? Is it 30 million? Is his average salary?
Yes.
I have to think that's a starting point, right, for Jefferson.
Oh, I think it starts above that, don't you?
But I don't think he's going below. That's what I'm saying. It's like
hell no.
You know, so he's going to look to go higher than that. So you're talking about quarterback money now. So I don't know how long it'll drag on, but I think it has to get done this off. Not technically, there's not a deadline this offseason, but realistically, don't you believe it has to get done this offseason? Because you do not want this dragging out. Jefferson does not want this dragging out and risk the injury and all that.
Right. And plus, if you do, the contract won't officially obviously kick in for 2 years, but you can start to spread out the cap hit too, which helps you a little bit.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not saying you wouldn't absorb a major part of the new contract's cap hit in 2023, but you would absorb some of it. So yeah, I think it gets done. Here's my question too. And I think it's worth broaching because while some of the key players are gone, they're not all gone. You know, to go back to what you said, Chip, when we're talking about a guy who's going to ask for quarterback money, which Justin Jefferson is going to, I think you're 1,000% right. You know, the Vikings with the Wills and Brzezinski, who is still here, really went out on a very interesting limb in 2018 with Kirk by guaranteeing the entire contract.
Yeah.
That is where the National Football League obviously is different from hockey, basketball, and baseball, where it's so lacking is so many of these contracts are fraudulent because there's so much unguaranteed cash. I think the most important thing, it might not be the eye-popping number that Justin Jefferson asks for. I think it's going to be look at the guarantees because I think he's going to ask for a ton of it guaranteed. And remember, with the Cousins contract, the Vikings set that precedent. First ever fully guaranteed contract.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll do that for a non-quarterback. Now, Jefferson's a special
They'll try
talent.
not to.
They'll try not to. The league obviously doesn't want to get in the habit of doing that for obvious reasons. Right. But Jefferson's such a unique player, obviously on the field, but think about what he means to that franchise. By far, not even a close second, your most popular player. And just the production on the field and what he means, just in terms of being the face of the organization now. The guy's getting MVP votes as a wide receiver. So he has all the leverage. I mean, he does. I mean, he absolutely has all the leverage. And so, Brzezinski's really good at what he does, and he's been creative, and we've seen that time and time again over however many 2 decades that he's been here in terms of how he can structure contracts, and it's way above my pay grade in trying to understand it. But I agree that it wouldn't surprise me because they've done this. They've gone down this route with the guaranteed buddy, that might be something that Jefferson's – I'm not even sure who his agency is. But that might be something that they're more inclined to look at versus, the traditional contract structure.
And I think where JJ also has them over a barrel is this. Kirk is not the long-term solution here. It's going to be probably a quarterback who they draft. So you are going to say, look, if you're Brzezinski, the Wilfs, Kwesi, and to a certain extent O'Connell, look, here's the deal. First of all, you guys want to draft a quarterback, and if it's a first-round QB, that means 5 years of team control. And so you want that young quarterback who you perceive as your future to have the best possible receiver to work with, right? Yeah. And the salaries at that point get flipped because that young QB is not going to be breaking your bank for at least 5 years, at which point Jefferson's career will probably be winding down. The point is, you can make the argument that the Vikings need Jefferson for the future, and they need to make it work because technically it really can work because you're not going to ultimately be paying a quarterback in perpetuity.
Will there be 1 year of overlap with if they extend Kirk with Jefferson and him in terms of the big?
They would take
24.
He goes through 24 with his rookie contract. Now, you will give him more with this contract, but the killer hit won't kick in until 25.
Okay, so
when Kirk should be gone.
Yeah, I would think. So what I think they do is with Kirk, 2 years, right? Play this year. I just don't know. I don't think you have the ammunition to move up and draft a quarterback this year.
I'm with you.
And I was just looking at mock drafts this morning. I was mocking this morning.
Yes, I love you for that.
But I saw a lot of them that had 4 quarterbacks going in the top 10.
Yes.
So then you get them and you get your quarterback in 24, let him sit a year, right? Kind of a redshirt year, and then presumably under that timeline, he's your quarterback in 25.
Yes.
Does that timeline make sense?
The timeline makes sense, and I actually think that and this is what's so dicey about this entire conversation. The way I see it is you're going to try to get your quarterback next year in the draft, ideally, and you're going to have to find a way to do that. That's the issue here, Chipper. This team is so stuck in the middle, right? Because like you could do things to purposely try and almost just pull yourself back financially to create room by being worse in 2023, or at least planning to be worse, but they don't do that.
Well, that's not their intent. Now, I'll say this. There's going to be a regression because I just don't see this team winning 13 games again next year. I think everything broke right their way this year, and so I think the schedule's a lot harder, right?
Yeah, first place schedule.
Yeah, and so now does that mean they're going to win 5 games? I don't think that's going to happen, but they seem like they're going to be in that, 9-8 realm. That seemed
10 wins,
10 and
right?
7, 10 and 7, something like that. Yeah. Will it require trading the player, including in there? I mean, I know that doesn't, I don't know how much that helps you, but the teams that are getting the quarterbacks they want are bottoming out, and I don't think this team's going to bottom out. Right. And I don't know that they're going to have the ammunition to move up. Maybe they mortgage the future and just say, you know what, we'll deal with the future in the future, and we'll give away, future first rounders to try to move up and get that quarterback they want. But that's what's going to be fascinating to me is see what Kwesi's succession plan is here.
Yes.
And how he's going to go about getting this quarterback.
Yep. And that's what I was talking to Phil and AJ about today is I also think, we have no idea what this franchise plans with Kwesi in control and O'Connell. By the end with Spielman, you had a pretty good idea of what Rick was going to do and probably more importantly, what he struggled with. But we don't know. So there are so many unanswered questions. The only thing I'm assuming until it happens on purpose or it looks like it's on purpose, the only thing I'm going to assume is that what you just said is correct, which is the Wilfs never have an intention of bottoming out. So that there's not going to be this appetite for, let's go ahead and cut all of these guys and it's going to cost us wins, but we don't care, which is why I think you're right on Kirk. I think he gets another short-term extension.
Yeah, could you see the Wilfs signing off on, say, what the Bears did?
No, I think Ryan Poles suggested it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we know they're fans, and we know that they love at least being in the mix. They do not want to bottom out. Now, it hasn't always, been a consistent playoff team, but they haven't been a disaster either, by and large, right? And so, but this offseason, I think, is going to show us a lot more about Kwesi's vision than last offseason. Last offseason, I just think when you get in and you're trying, there's a million things going on in your head. You're just trying to get settled and figure out what the lay of the land. And so there was the hey, let's run it back philosophy. This offseason is going to be more okay, how does he view this roster and where it's going? And that's where I think we're going to see some significant roster turnover with veterans, with maybe salary dumping on some of these guys and going younger, particularly on defense. So I think we'll have a better idea of what Kwesi wants to do here in the short-term future.
If we don't, it's a huge tell as well. If you go through that list and if they try to restructure guys who they probably should cut, that's a tell.
Yeah.
And that's also a tell of who's in charge.
Well, if they went that route, it would be basically saying they think 13, wins is able to be duplicated if you have these same guys here. And I don't want to say it's fool's gold because that's not fair, but 13 wins with one of the worst defenses in the NFL is not sustainable.
Right.
I mean, it's just not. So, and I don't think, even though they fired Ed Donatel, I don't think that they believe he was the sole problem. I think they know that it's a personnel issue too. So, but that, some of these mock drafts I saw a couple of them, I think, had them taking a wide receiver in the first round. I know you'd be on board with that, but
if you sign a cornerback in free agency because you've cut guys.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you don't sign a cornerback, a veteran, or a guy that's coming out of his first contract, then I think you have to take one, right? In the first round?
Yes, but they're gonna have a lot of young corners on this, a lot of unproven corners on this team. That's why I think you have to go try to find a veteran cornerback because otherwise you're having 4 guys that are young in their career, right? Assuming Duke Shelley's back.
Well,
he comes back. Booth, Evans. If you draft one, I mean, that's just a lot of young guys that,
Dantzler, who's not old yet, but is becoming sort of a suspect as well.
Is he in their plans? I don't know. I mean, he basically lost his. I mean, I know he got had the injuries, but when he was healthy, he didn't come back and play that much. So that's why I think and if it's not Pat Peterson, which I think they'll probably move on there.
Yeah,
I think you need to find a 26 to 28-year-old corner, 25 to 27-year-old cornerback to come in here and be your number one.
And if you're going to play man as much as I think Brian Flores is, then Pat P can't come back. Like Pat P was insulated. Yeah. He actually had a good year because of Donatel, which is why I think he was surprised that Ed was not brought back, despite the fact that the building was burning around him. So yeah, he can't come back. In fact, because I think they tried to play a little bit more man against the Giants in the playoff game, Chip, and Pat P got exposed. But there's a lot of things like that to what you're saying that I'm really curious about. And, at some point in time, you have to hit a reset or this thing is going to go completely off the cliff. That's the other thing that you have to be very careful about. I know that it worked out in 2022 and they won 13 games, and O'Connell and Kwesi did a great job of changing the culture in that. But you can't just, this is not a sport where you can just continue to try to run things back because you like guys or you perceive them as good character guys, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, particularly, all the other positions, but to me, like, I'm just really curious to see what the plan at quarterback is. At what point do they, because every year the top 3 or 4 guys are going to go in the top 10, right? I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, you're going to see it again this year and there's a run on them. I'm curious to see when they start evaluating those guys and how they're going to get into that prime position to select one, either, I assume, next year, right? I mean, there's no way they can do it this year, right?
Well, not unless they have they're going to mortgage future drafts. And I mean, you could do it if you trade a first-round picks in future drafts, but
now if you had a year where you just completely, things just how everything broke right this year. Things just the opposite happens and you get hit with injuries, you fall apart. Then it's, then it would be easier for you because you're going to draft higher. But if they're stuck in that middle, as you said, in that NFL purgatory where you're not
where they love to be.
Yeah. Well, you're not you're not a true threat in the playoffs, but you're not picking in the top 8. So, I just want to see how they're going to be able to pull this off in the next couple of years.
So as a guy who loves and watches as much college football as you do, Chip, take me through those quarterbacks. Like, who do you really like? I mean, we talk about Richardson because he might drop, but now it looks like he might not.
Yeah.
And he's got good size, but there's accuracy problems. Who do you watch and say, that guy really translates to me?
I loved watching Bryce Young play. I mean, I know there'll be knocks on his size, but man, I watched him when he played Tennessee, and the guy just makes plays. I really love a lot about him. Sounds like he's, the thing that, him and Stroud will get knocked on is like, wow, you got Alabama talent, Ohio State talent. Look at the receivers he's throwing to.
Sure.
And I'll buy that a little bit. Yes, you have 5-star talent around you and NFL guys, but I think that's also a little bit discredit to those guys. So. But Bryce Young, I really like a lot. I didn't see Levis from Kentucky a whole lot. Sounds like he's going to be the 4th guy that's in that group. Richardson will be the most intriguing because of his size and all the the physical tools that he brings. So it just probably depends on what teams are looking for there. How they value their skill sets. But I think Bryce Young's a winner and just a terrific player.
Is size a problem though, or no? Do you think at this level?
Well, everybody told me Russell Wilson was too small.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, well,
he was last
Wisconsin,
year.
Yeah. Well,
for the Broncos, he was way too small and not very good.
And I always said, it's like, do you think Wisconsin has tiny offensive linemen? I mean, man, he had a pretty good year with those 6'7", 330-pound linemen. And so that one always kind of, if you can move and create, your own windows and all that, I don't think it's that big a problem. But that'll be something that he gets, that people will really have to think long and hard about. But it wasn't a problem in Alabama.
I'm going to give you. Sorry, Chip. Go ahead.
Is the sizing that much different at Alabama than what you're going to see in the NFL?
Probably not, but it does freak out scouts.
It does. Yeah, I mean, I know it does.
I mean, they get hung up on it.
Yep. But I look more at the production.
All right, Chip Scoggins, I'm going to give you a list of players under contract to the Vikings. I'll run through them one by one, and you tell me who you think is a Viking, not a Viking, or has a restructured contract by the time free agency starts, okay?
Let's do it. It's a game. Spin the wheel.
It's a game. Spin the wheel, and we'll start with Orlando, Florida resident Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, is he with the Vikings? Is he lives down there? He wants to be a pro golfer. He blew us off years ago. We just didn't know about it.
I thought he lived in Woodbury, right down the street from me.
Yeah, that's where some extended family members probably live, and I'm sure that they'll wave to you, or they might flip you off these days. I don't know.
See his house a lot. A kid I coach lives across the street from him.
But what is your opinion, starting with Adam Thielen?
Judd, I'm gonna say no.
Not a Viking.
Not a Viking. I just think at this point in their plans, now whether he agrees with it or not, he's their fourth option, and I just don't know what how much you're willing to pay a guy that you see as your fourth. I mean, because by the end of the year, he was clearly their number 4, so I don't know how much they'd be willing to pay and how much he would be willing to accept as a pay cut.
And I was going to say, I think some of the problems start with the fact that he sees himself personally as the number 2. And so they're going to say, no, you're the 4. And so I think there's going to be a pride thing beyond the contract, which, involves pride as well. Harrison Smith.
I think he restructures and stays.
I agree with that. Zadarius Smith, who you can, by the way, by cutting, save $12.2 million on.
I thought you were going to tell me that his house is on the market, which our big Gasling reported.
Doogie found out that he didn't like the house.
Oh, so it's not even.
Doogie sources say that Zadarius is cutting the house. He doesn't like the house, so it's a house problem.
It's a house problem, not a.
He's releasing the house.
Judd, I'm gonna say no.
I agree completely. I think they do bring back I think they restructure or extend Danielle Hunter, but yes. I think Z is gone too.
Yeah.
Delvin Cook.
No. I just don't. I don't see
I agree completely with that one. Well, I just don't see it at that position. And you know what the thing was too? If he had a good overall year, like if he had caught a bunch of passes, I'd be like, okay, this sort of works. But when you're making that much to be somewhat surprising to me, what turned into a pure running back in the offense, I think he's gone.
Well, they were 27th in carries.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know that that's paying a running back that kind of money is in their plans.
Eric Kendricks.
No.
Do you think he goes elsewhere?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Like, I don't think he thinks he's done, but man.
Yeah.
That was hard to watch because when that guy was at the top of his game, he basically was, to me, a hybrid of a safety and linebacker.
Yeah.
And the guy we saw last year was nowhere near that.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, next one. Jordan Hicks, fellow linebacker.
No.
And the last one. Actually, you save, if you cut this guy, $3.1 million, CJ Ham.
No.
Okay. You just saved a ton of money. Congratulations. Yeah. You just did a
good. Bring them all back now. And Sullivan's on that list too, right? Shannon Sullivan?
No, his contract was a 1-year contract. He's done.
Oh, yeah, so
And you know what? Bye-bye.
He's not coming back.
I keep telling Phil this, and this is the one thing that drives me crazy. They need to go get a really good nickel corner. I'm amazed.
Yeah.
I'm amazed in 2022 into 23 that we still see teams are like, I'll fill that position. No, that's one of the most important positions. I mean,
I know.
The instructive thing to me was when we were together on the beat, Antoine Winfield put on a clinic there.
I know. He was a Pro Bowl player at it. You know, he was the guy. He kind of set the mold for what you want there. It'll be interesting. I said no to everybody but Harrison, right?
Yes. Yeah, you cut the rest of the team. You're brutal. What
that
type
might
of
be aggressive.
What type of family guy are you? All these people
right.
uproot their families, you SOB.
That might be too much cutting. I don't know.
I think you're right. No, I think you hit it.
It just feels like this is a time where they're going to turn the roster over. And, you know, a lot of it depends on obviously how they feel about the depth guys. Are they ready to step into those starting roles? A lot of us would, not that you want to have 8 rookies playing anyways, but they can only do so much in the draft with 4 picks right now. I'm sure they might get a compensatory.
They'll get a compensatory pick, but 5 picks. Right now.
But that would require you to be very aggressive in free agency if you're going to let go of those guys, because you got to plug the holes.
If this list survives, like if 4 are kept or something, I smell a Chip Scoggins Star Tribune column about a lack of aggressiveness from Egan. That's what I think is going to happen. So
that's right. Yeah.
All right, sir. We will talk to you next week as the combine gets underway. Thank you much. And of course, check out Chip's work in the Star Tribune. AJ, thank you. This has been Purple Access.